Hey guys, today's Wednesday, October 21st, and here's a rundown of our lesson. So you will need your journal, pencil, a highlighter, glue, notes on 7.1, which is our ratio notes, and your snack, because we remember we talked about doing a little snack activity and we did one in class. If you don't, you could just watch mine. All right, so we're going to do Builder 8, then the QOTD, which is the question of the day. We're going to go into our 7.1. This is ratio. Don't know why I decided to do rates. Ratio, because rates is on Friday. We're going to do our snack activity. The video that we watched in class, if you were here in person, I've uploaded it to the Google Classroom under this week, so go check it out. It's on Math Antics. And if you were online, I didn't show it because of the lag, so make sure you go check that out. Then we're going to do our snack activity, and then I'm going to go show your homework. So let's get going and go over Builder 8. So I'm going to go to my hover cam right here, and here's Builder 8. And we're going to look at this top part with computation, with adding and subtracting fractions and making this fraction into what its decimal actually equivalent. So how many times? So 37 divided by 2. So 37 is going to go on the inside, 2 is going to go on the outside. So 2 can go into 3 one time. 1 times 2 gives me 2. I subtract, I have 1. I bring down my 7, so I have 17. Well, 2 times what gives me something close to 17? Well, 2 times 8 gives me 16. That's only 1 away, so I have a remainder of 1. So I need to put a decimal and bring down a 0. So how many times can 2 go into 10? Well, that's 5 times, which gives me 10 exactly, with the remainder is 0. So 37 halves is actually 18 and a half. 18 and a half. So we have subtracting and adding fractions right here. You want to make sure that when you're subtracting and adding fractions, you have common denominators, which they already have common denominators. So you just need to look at your numerators. So 3 minus 2 gives me 1. So the numerator changes, but the denominator stays the same. So it would be 1/4. Here we have 4/8 plus 3/8. 4/8 plus 3/8, they both have the same denominator, so I'm looking at the numerator. Well, 4 plus 3 gives me 7. The numerator changes, the denominator stays the same, which would be 8, so it would be 7/8. Okay, if we flip over to the back, here our QOTD, question of the day, was 5, open parentheses, -2, close parentheses, plus 30. All right, so we're going to solve this one. And one thing that tripped up some people is when they see this, they did subtraction, which you do not. A number next to the parentheses with a number in it represents multiplication. So 5 times -2 gives me a -10 plus 30. So order of operations, I need to do this multiplication first. So -10 plus 30, well, I have different signs, so I need to subtract. So 30 minus 10 gives me 20. I have more of a positive than I do a negative, so it will be a positive 20. So that is our QOTD, our question of the day. All right, so we're going to get our journals out, and we're going to go to our table of contents. And today we're going into 7.1, and we are into ratios. Okay? Ratios are my friends, guys. Ratios are my friends. You see ratios all the time. If you cook, the amount of flour to the amount of sugar in a cookie recipe is a ratio. The amount of eggs to the amount of oil that you have is in a ratio. If you're dealing with a box cakes mix, the whole amount of box cakes mix to whatever it calls for is a ratio. Okay? When you're dealing with art, you're going to find out more about the golden ratio. All right? So we're going to go back and turn our page and glue our notes in. So our notes have a star on it and have like some squares. And it is, today is the 21st, so I'm going to zoom this out so today is 10/21, 2020. And we're going to deal with ratios. So ratio, okay, grab my highlighter. Oh, put my highlighter up here. A ratio is a multiplicative, okay, that's a big word, but it just means a multiplication, comparison of two quantities expressed with the same units. The figure shows a ratio of 4 blue squares to 1 red square. Now you're looking, you're like, Miss Delcambre, those are both gray squares, okay? But I'm going to put a B here and these 4 to represent blue and a red there, an red R. So that is a comparison of 4 blues to 1 red, okay? So if you're making a bracelet or it's kind of like a pattern. Ratio is kind of like a pattern. So we have 3 stars to 1 moon. So my ratio is a 3 to 1 ratio. If I continue this out, I could have 6 stars to 2 moons, but the ratio still stays the same. Okay, it's a 3 to 1 ratio. So numbers in a ratio are called terms. And a ratio can be written in several different ways. And we're going to look at the different ways that we can write them. Okay, so if I'm comparing 5 dogs to 3 cats, I can say 5 to 3. This is words, guys. The word to is how you can write it. The word to. So 5 to 3. Second way is with this colon, with a symbol. So this is what we call a colon. If you are typing this, it's right next to the L on the keyboard, right next to the L. Let me show you what my keyboard looks like. And it's right there next to the L. That one right there, that is your colon. Okay. And the last one here is it written like as a fraction. And the key thing right here, guys, is I want you to put a star because you're going to see this kind of most often, ratio set up as a fraction. Okay. However, all of them you'll see that this one kind of is sometimes one of the most common ones. So, important. Ratios can be written as a part to part, a part to whole, or a whole to part. So let's look down here. We have a party mix, okay? So basically, guys, this is a recipe to make some party mix. We're going to write it 3 different ways. Well, here we're comparing bagel chips to peanuts. So bagel chips is part of the recipe, and peanuts are part of the recipe. So we're comparing part to part. So bagel chips, I'm going to look over here. Well, that's 2. So 2 peanuts. Look over here. Oh, 1. So it's a 2 to 1 ratio. Now I used it with words. Now I'm going to use it with the colon. Oh, 2 to 1. And then I'm going to use it as a fraction. So 2 over 1. All right. So going to the next one, you have your total party mix. Well, I could add this all up. I get 8, or I can look and see, oh, it makes 8 cups. So total, this is your whole amount to the pretzels, which is your part. So the whole amount was 8 to my part of the pretzels was 4. So it's an 8 to 4 ratio. Okay, I can write this 8 to 4 with my colon, or 8 over 4 as a fraction. Now my next one are cheese crackers and peanuts. Well, that makes it part of the mix. So this is part to part. So if I look, cheese crackers, I come over here, there's cheese crackers. Well, it's a 1 to, peanuts is 1 cup. So that's a 1 to 1 ratio. So 1 cup to 1 cup and a 1 over 1. All right. Now, when we're dealing with equivalent ratios, this is important. Think of equivalent ratios. This is also like equivalent fractions. Think of this like fractions as well. So it gives you in your mind that, okay, equivalent ratios and equivalent fractions, I can do the same process, the same steps. Are ratios that name the same comparison. You can find an equivalent ratio by using table or by multiplying or dividing both terms of the ratio by the same number. Okay, we're going to hit table tomorrow, and you're going to kind of see it. It's going to visually draw it out, how we can represent this with a table. But think of it, it's by multiplying or dividing both terms by the same number there. Okay, so 2/7, if I multiply that 2 by 2 and that 7 by 2, I get 4/14. These are equivalent. And again, how you can check that this is equivalent, guys, is remember that butterfly method you may have learned back in 4th grade? 7 times 4 is 28. 14 times 2 is 28. They're equivalent. They're equivalent ratios. Okay? 8/24 can be divided. We can divide the top and the bottom both by 4, and we get 2/6. Well, let's check it out. They're equivalent. 24 times 2 gives me 48. 6 times 8 gives me 48 as well. They're equivalent. I can actually simplify this one more time. I can divide this by a 2, and I get 1/, divide that by a 2, by a 3. Now, watch, if I go back to this one, 24 times 1 gives me 24. 3 times 8 gives me 24. They're both equivalent ratios. All right, so that would make them equivalent. All righty, now let's go down to the bottom. Find 3 ratios equivalent to the given ratio. So we're finding equivalent ratios, guys, not the different ways that you can write them. So this way, these are ways you can write it. Here, we're talking about equivalent ratios. So if I have 8/10, 8/10, well, I can simplify that by dividing both of them by 2, the top and the bottom by 2. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So 8/10 and 4/5 are equivalent. All right, let's look at another one. So I have 8/10. I can multiply both of them by 2. You got to remember, multiplying and dividing both numbers, both terms by the same number. So 8 times 2, that gives me 16. 10 times 2 gives me 20. So that would be 16/20. That's equivalent to 8/10. I can come and do, 8/10, what can be, well, multiplied by 2. Well, let's multiply by 5. So if I multiply the top and the bottom both by the same number, I will get an equivalent fraction. So 8, or equivalent ratio. 8 times 5 gives me 40. 10 times 5 gives me 50. So 40/50 is also an equivalent ratio to 8/10. Because again, I can simplify this and get to 8/10. And look, you can even cross multiply. 10 times 40 gives me 400. 50 times 80 gives me 400. So they're equivalent. All right, let's look down here at 5/2, or 5/2. So I'm going to switch this around. So 5/2, I can't use division because that's in simplest terms. There's not a number except 1 that goes into 5 and 2. And then if I divide by 1, I'm going to get the same exact number. Nothing really changes. So let's multiply. So I'm going to multiply. Let's do by 2. So 5 times 2 gives me 10. And 2 times 2 gives me 4. So 10/4 is equivalent fraction, or equivalent ratio, to 5/2. Again, we're going to start with 5/2. 5/2. Well, we multiply by 2. Let's multiply by 3. Again, it's whatever numbers you want to multiply by. So 5 times 3, well, that gives me 15. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So 15/6 is an equivalent ratio to 5/2. All right. Finally, let's do one more. So I'm going to do 5 halves. Okay, so I multiplied by 2. I multiplied by 3. It could be any number. It could be any number that you want. So I'm going to do, let's see, we've done 5, 2. Let's do 6. Let's do 6. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom both by 6. 5 times 6 gives me 30. And 2 times 6 gives me 12. So an equivalent ratio to 5 halves is 30 over 12. Or an equivalent ratio to 5 over 2 is 30 over 12. Okay? All right, so here, these are different ways to show equivalent ratios. These are all equivalent, meaning I can break these all the way down and get them to 5 halves. I can break these all the way down and get to 8/10. All right, let's turn our paper over and let's get that snack out. So let me just unzoom this out. So I picked up some M&Ms, you know, the fun size ones because Halloween's coming. So this is what I picked up. So there's my little red and my little orange guy. You didn't have to pick this to pick anything. But just to let you know, the M&M smelled really good when I opened the package this morning. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm first going to count how many I have. So I'm going to write total real quick up here. Total. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Ooh, biggest one I've got so far. So I have 16 M&Ms. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to group them. I'm going to put all of them by color. And it looks like in this package, I got a lot of oranges. One moment. Whew. Yeah, a whole lot of oranges, it looks like. Oh, that brown goes right up there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have all 6 colors. So we're going to write the colors of these M&Ms. So I have orange. I have green. I have yellow, brown, red, and blue. Okay, now you write what you have. So I had students who had sweet tarts. Their colors are going to be different. Their amounts are going to be different. I had a student who brought gummy bears. Theirs is going to be different. Okay, it's not going to look like this. So if you're doing this, you go and do whatever you had. All right, now I'm going to tally up. I'm going to count how many orange I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow, 8 oranges. I have 1, 2, 3 greens, 1 yellow, 2 browns, 1 red, and 1 blue. Okay, now we're going to make we're going to set up these ratios, and we're going to set up a part to part, part to part. So basically we make a fraction and we write words instead of numbers. So part over part. We're going to do one that's part over whole. Okay, do you see? It looks like a fraction, but it has words in it instead of numbers. But we are going to make it into numbers, so don't worry about that because we're setting it up as a ratio. And then we're comparing whole over part. Okay? So, part over part. So I'm taking part of this and another part. So say I'm going to compare this brown to the green. So I'm going to put brown is going to go on top, and then green is going to go underneath. So my ratio is, well, I have 2 browns to 3 greens. So my ratio is a 2 to 3. So if I did it with my M&Ms, there it is. Because 2 represented brown and 3 represents green. Do you see how it's kind of labeling here? Get in the habit of doing that. It will help you so much, guys. Help you so much. So now let's look at part to whole. So I'm going to look at my orange compared to my total. So, oh my, this is that one that had so many. I had 8 oranges. Okay. And I had a total, if I look, of 16. So my ratio is 8 to 16. I can also have an equivalent one of this, guys, because I can say half of my bag of M&Ms were oranges, because 8 over 16 reduces to 1/2. So 1/2 is an equivalent ratio to 8/16. All right, that was the only one in all 3 classes that, or now 4, that could reduce. All right, my other ones gave me like 17 and 15, so it's kind of hard to do. All right, so let me move my oranges out of the way, and I'm going to do whole to part. Well, whole is your total. So my total amount to my part, well, you know what? Blue feels lonely over here, so we're going to put blue. Well, my total was 16 M&Ms to 1 lonely blue. So it's a 16 to 1 ratio. A 16 to 1 ratio. So that's the activity that we did in class, guys. Really not that difficult, because ratios really aren't that difficult. You're setting things up, and it's really important for you to set it up like words like this so that you know what this represents, what this 2 represents. And I guarantee you that if you keep setting it up like this, in our next lesson in Unit 8, when we talk into proportions, it's going to help you so much. All right, so we're going to get done with the hover cam real quick. If you go to your Google Classroom, I'm going to pull up the homework. Give it a minute. So I'm just going to go to my first block's homework. Under week 2. Here we go. Our 7.1 ratios. Open this with Cami, guys. It just takes a little while for it to open with Cami. Oh, while it's opening, right? Oh, well, really fast. It's still opening with Cami. This is where the video is. Where did the video go? Math antics. Here we go. So let me move the math antics down. Move this down. So that math antics video is what I'm talking about. Okay, that was the one that we watched in class. I need to move this one down to next step. Not wanting to listen to me. Okay, we'll figure this one out. But here it is, the ratios. Let's see if it pulled up on Cami. All right, so I'm going to grab my text box over here. So here we have 1 through 5. You're going to look at this table over here for the animals in the zoo. And we're comparing lions to elephants. So again, looking over here, lions is 9. Elephants is 12. So this is a 9 to 12 ratio. We can also write it as 9:12. And we can also write this as a fraction. If you want to do your fraction like this, let's see, 9/12, that is perfectly fine. If you want to go in and get your equation, the math symbol, and you just click to make the text box, and you can go 9/12, and it will pop up. But for some reason, there you go. So it will pop up. Either one of those 2 fraction styles will work. Okay, so you need, for 2 through 5, you need to look over here at this table to find out what it would be. Okay, 6 through 8, we're coming up with equivalent ratios. So I'm going to come and grab my text box. I'm sorry, my equation box. So I'm going to make one. So 4 to 3, 4 over 3 is the same as saying, say, 8 over 6. Okay? Remember, this was that bottom part of our notes that we were multiplying by. All right, which is the same as saying 16 to 12. Okay, because I multiplied by the top and the bottom both by 4. And then my next one, I'm going to say multiply it by 5. So I'm going to do 20 over 15 is another equivalent ratio. So 6 through 11, guys, 6 through 11, you are going to find the 3 equivalent ratios. So just like this on 6 through 11. Okay, we already did 6, so showed you how to set it up. Make sure you do the same here through 11. Now, question number 12 is a little different, all right? But it is no problem at all to do this. So I'm going to make a ratio table on this, and we're going to talk about ratio tables tomorrow as well. So how I'm going to make this ratio table is I'm going to have basically 3 lines, and this gives us a visual of what it's going to look like. So I have 3 lines, and then I'm going horizontally, and then I'm drawing 1, 2, 3 lines going vertically. So it looks like a huge tic-tac-toe board. Okay, it's like basically a double stacked ratio table. So a ratio of clownfish to angelfish of the pet store is 4 to 5. Okay, so come over here and grab my highlighting. So clownfish to angelfish is 5 to 4. All right. So clownfish is 5, angelfish is 4. Do you see? Clownfish was mentioned first, 5 was mentioned first. Angelfish was mentioned second, 4 was mentioned second. The ratio of angelfish to goldfish is 4 to 3. So that 4 goes with that angelfish, and that 3 goes with that goldfish. So I'm going to fill out my table. So I'm going to type right here, G for gold. Let's just kind of, I'll put it over here. So C for clownfish. No, I'm going to type clown, and then angel fish. And then you have your goldfish. All right. With my clownfish, there were 5. With my angelfish, there were 4. And with my goldfish, there were 3. Okay. Now, there are 60 clownfish at the pet store. So 60 is going to go right here. So now I've got to think to myself, what did I do to 5 to get 60? Ask yourself that question. What did I do to 5 to get 60? Well, if I know my math facts, I know that that's multiplying by 12. And since ratio is a multiplicative comparison, you have to multiply everything by that number. So we need to multiply all of these by 12 because it's basically 12 times the original ratio. So here we come. So 60 is 5 times 4. 5 times 12. 4 times 12 gives me 48. And finally, 3 times 12 gives me 36. So how many angelfish are there? There would be 48 angelfish. And how many goldfish are there? There would be 36 goldfish. Okay? So tomorrow we're going to talk more on to making those ratio tables. And so go ahead and make sure that you fill this out and complete it and turn it in. So click Save and Turn In. And I will see you tomorrow. All right, guys. Bye.